So my name's Selena Carty. I'm a cultural and ancestral historian, Afrocentric genealogist, founder of Black Poppy Rose and Black Rose Remembrance. So I've been studying history for the last 15 years. I study in different archives around the world, different university scholars, and I also study with historians as well, and families, because family history is actually where the history comes from. We're able to make it make sense with the general history that we learn in schools, and in local environments, but the family history is where the history actually starts. And that's my background in regards to that. I am first generation born in England, so my families have all come from Jamaica within the Windrush period. And as a result, the visibility around my presence, what I felt was very lacking. And when you're calling a new place home, or you're calling somewhere else outside of where people classify you to be, I felt it was important that the work that I have started to do and that I've been doing for the last 11 years around raising that visibility and that respect within our communities around our own identities, especially as it is convoluted with colonialism, looking at where some aspects of us are and some aspects of European history, and how we've come together to create these new cultures so that we can start understanding ourselves better, especially as we're classified as Black or African, knowing that that's an umbrella term for so many different identities. When I was born in the 80s. We had door-to-door salesmen selling items. So my mum bought the encyclopedia sets, the Britannica encyclopedia sets. So I would go through those and I'd be looking for Black people. I'd be looking for the faces, and then I'd write out all the information and I'd tell people about it, because nobody was talking about Black people in that way. And then when I used to go to school, I used to look for the Black books or the books of people of color. And I used to take those books and bring them home, because I was like, the school doesn't need them. They're not all Black. I need them. And I would ask questions. But in history, my history teacher told me that my ancestors were slaves. So I left history and I went to geography, because I said, nobody in my family's told me that. So you don't get to tell me that. And then I learned about the world. And then as a result of learning about the world, I saw that there were different people all over the world. And there were people that looked like me in many places. And, what did they think? How did they feel? How were they treated in these places that they call home? So that spurred my interest. And then as I became an adult, I started traveling the world and looking for our communities everywhere in the world. And we are everywhere in the world. And we're having very similar experiences, no matter where we're coming from, especially about who and what we conceptualize us to be, especially around, shadism, people of darker melanin components and lighter melanin components, and not really understanding that our genetic makeups are strong factors in why we have certain skin complexions, or why our hair's a certain way, or why our noses are a certain way, or why our body structures are a certain way. And then it got me thinking that, we're having these conversations like there's one generic term for people. And in our communities, we have to hold our hands up for that, because we regularly point out somebody may be too dark or too light or too short or too tall or too thick or too thin, or all of the rest of these things, because in our brains we've normalized a sense of identity that's been gifted to us externally in regards to beauty, in regards to what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And I thought that, looking at all of these areas and these factors, how do we start having a conversation to be able to actually say, actually, who and what I look like, and whatever flavor I come in should be enough for me to be able to quantify or qualify to be a part of a grander narrative around our racial infrastructures and our cultural identities. When I was growing up, there were many questions that I used to ask that nobody had the answers for. And when I was a child, I felt adults should know everything, because that's what children believe. We all believe that adults should know everything. But as a result of not knowing everything, I didn't then limit myself to think, well, if they don't have the answer, how do I not go and find the answer? Somebody should be able to have the answer. So that's why I started searching the books and started trying to have conversations. But a lot of people didn't have the answer. And then when you go through puberty, and then you realize you're actually all very different. Some, when I was growing up, but girls were growing breasts at maybe 11. I didn't start, puberty till I was about 13. And, it was deemed normal, abnormal, but there was an understanding around what normal and abnormal was. And I thought, well, where is the source of this? Where's the source of this normality? And as a result, as a young person growing up, I was really looking for where that source of normality was coming from, why we were all stigmatized to have to meet to one ideal.